is different.
This is different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to take me a minute to get used to it.
It is. Well, we're looking right at each other.
Yeah.
For new listeners, we are, especially those on audio, we are in a new studio, which was just a couple rooms down from the other one that we had. Previously, it was a small room, so we kind of crammed it into a corner and had a fake plant to make it look nice.
We did have a fake plant.
And we're now in a larger room with way more comfortable chairs, and we're looking straight at each other, which is
less
awesome.
Decorations, though.
Yes. Less decorations. We have some decorating to do. But it's cool. This is kind of like startup garage vibe.
Yeah.
All right. You wanted to talk about Notion and HubSpot again. So
I need to rescind the last episode that we did on Notion and HubSpot.
You need to rescind. No. We didn't talk about this.
That's probably a little strong. We haven't talked about this.
We have not talked about this. We usually do way more prep, but you brought this up, and I said, let's just hit record because I want to hear this live and see my own visceral reaction later. Yeah. So
can you do a recap for us? Because I think you kind of brought up the topic initially.
I did bring up the topic initially. So there is a lot of interesting counterintuitive competition in the market being created by AI. So one example actually that came up recently, someone wrote a post called OpenAI should build Slack. Okay. Right?
Yeah.
Your average person, including me, is not going to wake up one day and say, that's a really natural thing for OpenAI, to do.
Right.
But if you step back and think about it, it makes a ton of sense for something like that to happen. So a couple of episodes ago, I essentially tried to convince you that Notion, even though most people view it as maybe a cleaner document management system, better than Google Drive, for example, I think is sort of the main use case, that actually they have the ability to go after a gigantic incumbent like HubSpot and essentially be the entire connected system for operating like a small to medium-sized business.
Right.
And the basic thesis was, under the hood, Notion is a database. So you can build CRMs, you can build inventory systems, you can really sort of build whatever you want. You have individual apps, so they acquired a calendar company.
Yep.
They built an email product, and all of those things are connected. So, for example, you can see a database in your calendar if there are dates on it, right? Which, again, that feels a little bit counterintuitive, but actually makes a lot of sense when you think about a connected system. And then the kill shot for my thesis, which you're about to dismantle, was that all of those things individually, that's great, but really the AI agents make it all work together in a way that seems like magic.
Yes.
And especially for small to medium-sized businesses, you'll be able to do things and execute workflows that are still actually very difficult for most businesses today. So the example that I gave was, you get an email from a customer or a prospect, you need to update the CRM, schedule a meeting, draft a response to the email, all that sort of stuff. Possible in Notion today. And their new agent technology is really incredible. So we talked about a couple gaps. HubSpot has analytics. They have much more sophisticated website publishing. And then, of course, the big one is marketing automation. But Notion's so flushed with cash, those are an acquisition or a smart engineering team, a couple months away, and they have both options.
Right.
And so I think that's really interesting. I'm not on their board, which may surprise some listeners.
Where's your poster?
I know, I do need my poster.
Yeah.
The CEO Land Cruiser poster. We'll
exactly.
So that was my thesis. So you want to rescind, you mostly agreed with me, but you want to rescind your previous perspective.
I think so. I think there's a couple of things that I've been thinking about since we released the episode. And some of them are from a technology side. Some of them are after actually working with Notion AI with somebody on something they wanted it to do.
Okay. Ooh, this is going to be good.
Yeah. And then maybe a general perspective. So I'll start specifically. So somebody somebody came to me and was like, hey, I'm trying to do this thing in Notion, like with Notion AI, like, can you help me? Do you have any thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
And they had used Claude Code to produce a bunch of markdown files. We're happy with the results. I think they were planning a content calendar for a marketing team.
Okay.
And they felt like Notion was a better UI for the marketers to use. So 100%. They were comfortable, like Claude Code markdown files.
Yep.
But let's put this in Notion. So they're essentially trying to recreate something they already know works, like via this other method in Notion. So, and like the short of it is they're having trouble. And I think they started with Auto, which in all of these AI tools, it's like there's this like sales pitch of like, oh, the tool will just pick the best model for you. It's like, which is probably a cost optimization thing. So I told them like, no, like force it to use like Opus,
right, 4.6, something heavy duty.
Something heavy duty. Still had trouble. And
interesting.
And it was a relatively complex, like you can imagine, like it's creating multiple entries in a table and then kind of stubbing out some content and, things like that. But here's what got me thinking. Because of that like particular struggle, I just got to thinking like, I don't know if their current architecture is going to work right. Like work how they would want it to.
You mean the
Notion.
Individual or Notion?
Notion. No.
Okay.
No. Because they've replicated exactly what they want. They're just trying to improve the user experience with Notion.
Okay.
To make it more accessible to non-technical people. So there's been a lot of like growing buzz around Obsidian, which is kind of a Notion competitor, but more like kind of open source core, like more techy people, I think in general use it.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny because probably the way that, people would think about Notion as, okay, well, it's like a clean document editor. I think about Obsidian that way because the main use cases from the people, I don't use Obsidian,
right.
But the people who use it, it's kind of like, okay, it's just a note taker. It's a markdown editor, essentially.
Right.
Which is how they started, I think.
Yeah, that's been the core of the platform. And they've just greatly benefited from AI, which is just phenomenal with text files. Searching text files, editing text files. It's just like very comfortable. And I'm not even saying like for them to take over a lot of Notion's market, like the personas are wrong. Like they'd have to redo it. Like I don't think that's probably going to happen.
Right.
Although Obsidian has a massive like marketplace store, and you could basically rebuild a lot of Notion with all the right plugins and stuff, but it's just the personas aren't right for Obsidian to take over Notion. So I'm actually not arguing that. I'm arguing their architecture is correct, and I wonder
that
if
Obsidian's architecture is correct
for the AI stuff. So I'm wondering if Notion's current APIs, nested pages and structures and stuff is going to struggle. If they're going to struggle with AI because of that, whereas Obsidian is just it's landed on disk and it's a bunch of markdown files.
Okay.
Like the AI will crush at that architecture.
Yep.
And I don't know, like maybe they work it out. Maybe it's just a model release ahead and it'll be fine. But if they had to re-architect a bunch of stuff, they've got cash. They could do it. And again, I don't know enough about their backend to know what they would have to do. But
right. I think it's Postgres.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think it's just all Postgres under the hood, and there was a point at which the company almost died because they waited as long as they possibly could to shard Postgres.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which, for the non-technical, you're a database guy.
Yeah.
Explain sharding and why that was potentially going to bring Notion's business to its knees.
Yeah. I mean, I think here's my best analogy for this. Imagine you have an old computer. Like every time you boot it up, it says like you're low on disk space. And you're like, I'll deal with that later. And then you boot it up again. It's like you're really low on disk space. Then you boot it up again, and then like you go to boot it up and it like doesn't start.
Right.
Like that's essentially like you can imagine like the database partition shard, whatever you want to call it, is getting to capacity of what it can actually like do, and you need to have multiple of them. And I guess the story is that they just waited like way too long.
I think apparently the story is that every engineer quit everything they were doing, and that's the only thing the company worked on.
Crazy.
Which is wild, yeah.
Okay, well, I guess they have a history here then. But I guess my point is, interestingly enough, my prediction is not that like Obsidian's going to like dominate them in the market. My prediction is they may have to do some major re-engineering.
Interesting.
Based off what I'm seeing, like how these things work really well and fast.
Did the person you were helping, though, did they actually get their project working in Notion? Like, did they get to a point where...
Not really. I don't think they were happy with it.
Okay.
But I do think they kind of like developed a workaround where we can kind of break this down into more steps and like, you know, like, because anything with AI, like if you, the ideal is like, hey, I want to like give somebody this thing and they run it, it works.
Right.
But most things, if you broke it down into more steps, like any of the AIs will be fine. So I think that was the end goal, which wasn't necessarily bad, and they'll probably still use it. And again, Notion AI is not going to get worse, I don't think.
Yeah, totally.
But I do wonder if the architecture is going to work. This is extending beyond Notion. Of people that have the traditional. It seems like it's a fair argument to say we might need to re-architect a lot of things because we have this new technology that works in a completely novel way. And when people start new, they're not doing it this other way typically.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Which is wild because that's changed in the last like 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
But this would be my question. As I think about the use case that you're describing, I think it's really atypical.
Okay.
For the
Like a small
archetype
business.
Notion as HubSpot
Right.
company that I'm thinking of. So generating a bunch of markdown files and creating that taxonomy outside of Notion and then trying to import it, I think would probably be challenging because of Notion's architecture, which is your point.
Right.
But what if you created all of that within Notion to start?
No, that's what they did. They like prototyped it and then went and tried to do it native in Notion. So they weren't like importing files.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I guess the other thing, and this is like a bigger picture thing related to the Notion. So that's like one thing, but I do think the use case is, it was a pretty aggressive use case. Like I want to like kind of one shot plan, like a full month of, you know, of content. And then I have all the, like, it was fairly advanced.
Yep.
But I think the other use case or the other thing that's interesting with Notion is it's a simple tool. It has an awesome like user base that like a small business can sign up for an account or like an enterprise, and it just spans like a big group.
Huge.
It spans like one persona, but across a bunch of businesses. They somehow bridge the enterprise like free user gap, which is really hard.
I think in particular for particular personas.
Yeah.
So for example, in product development or like a team wiki or other things like that, it's used. I mean, I actually, right before we started recording, I was researching MCP stuff and came across an integration for Notion's MCP. And I believe on their site it said 98% of the Fortune Cloud 100, which I don't know what the Cloud 100
Fortune
is.
Cloud 100. I guess that like ExxonMobil in that list.
Right. Yes.
Right.
But I mean, that is pretty interesting.
Yeah. That is interesting. Okay. So here's my other like more meta theory is I think cool, more advanced use case, whatever. Like a lot of people will be able to use Notion AI for their email, their Slack, to do some planning, to do like generate some docs. Like it'll be great. I think the other thing though is, you know how there's this principle in like technology where like everything eventually becomes JavaScript. Have you heard that one? Yeah.
Yes.
Which the point of that is everything eventually like becomes the most, I don't know if simple is the right word, but the most like condensed or simplified.
Yeah.
Like whatever. Like I wonder if that happens with technology too. And that and when
you
I mean
beyond Notion, like
beyond even Notion, where I live my personal life and I use text messages, like Apple reminders occasionally, Apple Notes occasionally, email, but Google Doc very occasionally, a Google Sheet very occasionally. That's kind of it, you know?
Right.
And where essentially those are the form factors that are so embedded that like a lot of other stuff goes away. And Notion, you could say, is a better version of Google Docs, but if the AI, like these AIs can either equip people, act as employees, or equip people to work in a new way, I think the ways people prefer to think and work are basically along those lines. And if you can just delegate, because we're like right on the line of like being able to delegate work or responsibility versus tasks.
Interesting.
I think there's a lot of tasks you can delegate, and it can do responsibilities of like, hey, you're responsible for marketing. Like people like do that on YouTube, but it's not like, that's not quite a thing.
Right.
But if you could do that, and if we are headed there, then like, how do you want to interact with the thing that like can do your marketing or whatever?
Right.
I mean, probably like some kind of doc, some kind of spreadsheet, like text some kind of messaging thing. Like, I don't know. I mean, if it works how, a lot of people think it's going to work, I think that it might revert that direction versus the additional complexity of other tools. Notion being kind of in the middle. Like, it really is a better version of Google Docs in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So that might be an exception, but I think a lot of tools that are essentially just complexity, like, may go away if that form factor becomes like, well, you just communicate with it the way you would want to, like personally, which is like the most easy, simple way to.
So what's an example of something that you think would go away?
Oh, like a tool?
Yeah.
I mean, I hope Jira. A lot of project management tools.
Isn't linear, you think linear is going to go away?
I don't know. I mean, that one's really good, and they're trying to lean into be almost like an orchestration tool.
Right. Which was the only, I mean, it's easy to say this in hindsight, but that's the only way that they can survive, I think.
Yeah. I think honestly, the only net new tooling, aside from what I like just described, like the basic tools like people use in their personal lives too, is probably some kind of orchestration tool. But I mean, that's really broad. Like that's like, that'll be all the way from like one side linear to another side. What's that company? What's the company that was on the list that you shared with me?
Monday.
Monday for sure. I think linear will win out there.
For sure.
Anyway, there's several of the more technical like agent orchestration platforms that are like LangChain. That's what I was.
Oh, LangChain. Right.
Like one of those is like way, or N8N, like way over here, like technical, whatever.
Yep.
Like we'll start competing with linear potentially.
Right. Okay. So this goes back to counterintuitive competitive forces, right? Yeah. Like thinking about N8N competing with linear would have sounded so weird even a year ago.
Right.
And now, it's like, okay, wow. Like,
but I think it gets drawn up of like agent orchestration, which has this like really broad, like think of a bucket of like project management tools, and then a bucket of like these really like kind of complicated workflow AI tools, like could all consolidate into like agent orchestration.
Right.
And then the way people are working, it's like a Google Docs or maybe a Notion. It's like some kind of email tool, some kind of messaging tool, whether it's like everybody just uses Claude or OpenAI and chats with people and agents in the same place. Like that might happen. Probably will happen. Right. And then it just, because the main complaint, I mean, I've been doing technology stuff for a long time, especially when I was like in technology leadership. So we have too many tools. We want them all to talk together.
Yeah, exactly. Well, okay. So this is interesting as we think about these competitive forces. So I think what's compelling about Notion for a particular subset of users is that the closed connected system, let's call it,
right,
it's a better environment for AI to operate in. And I would argue it's probably a lot easier for the Notion team to build agents that do interesting things on behalf of their users.
Right.
Because it's all connected, right? Linear is interesting because they have done a really good job of excellent integrations and MCP integrations and, so it's orchestration, but it's actually, it's they've done an incredible job of sort of the main set of tools that their target users
Right.
are operating in every single day. You can actually connect those very well, like as an orchestration tool. And so I think that's what's interesting. Like the integration problem is, I agree with you, like maybe the tool set itself actually shrinks, but that only becomes desirable if the subset of tools that you have are really deeply integrated.
Right.
And you can sort of easily work across them. And I think
Yeah.
for a lot of people, if there's friction there, like the limit of what they can experience in like a closed connected system, it will just be such a better experience that it won't matter.
Right. Well, and then, yeah, I think I agree with that. But the other direction this could go would be a bunch of competing ERPs, basically. I mean, that's kind of sad, but like Notion just decides we're going to add chat. We're going to buy or build chat. We're going to have calendar.
Oh, you mean like,
notes.
they're going to build Slack?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just like literally, you buy Notion, and you open Notion in the morning, and it has your email in it. It has your calendar in it. You take notes on it during the day. The AI takes notes for you. You talk to it for things you want to do. You do things. You produce assets, whatever you want.
Yep.
And then maybe there's some boundaries where they decide not to get into email marketing. They have like a couple integrations, but I mean, especially with how fast you'll be able to build software, and you already can. Like, why not do that?
Yeah.
Even same for linear. Like, why not just move toward, I mean, sure, maybe agent orchestration is the first thing, but eventually maybe you just have a bunch of competing brands where you're like, oh yeah, we're a Notion company, and like it's just like full stack Notion, or we're a linear company, it's like full stack linear.
Right.
And then it's just a brand thing. I mean, I'm looking at a picture of a car, like your poster over there.
Right.
Like, what's the difference between like this car versus another car? And people will be really passionate about the differences, but to run a business, just like to get around, like the answer is you could use either.
Right. Totally. Yeah. It's the bundling.
Yeah.
It's actually like it's an interesting form of bundling, because it's creating bundling opportunities that just didn't previously exist,
Right.
or would have been you would have been prohibited from pursuing them in some way, right? Whether that's cost or, the going after multiple markets. But it is fascinating that, these things are sort of combining to create potential, like significant bundling, which that is kind of a doomsday, thinking about all these tools turning into major ERPs and competing with each other.
I mean, if you watch any of the, like, I can't think of a specific movie, but a lot of the futuristic movies that like are set like 200 years from now, I can think of like there's this idea that everything's going to be combined, like
Yeah, for sure.
Like silly things like drug companies and like restaurant chains, and you know what I mean? Like there's silly combinations of mergers that's
By and large from Wall-E, right?
yeah, exactly.
That's the
But I kind of see that happening here.
Yeah.
And I think one other thought. So maybe I'm not that. I think I definitely agree with the premise, and that there's going to be weird competition like HubSpot and Notion. I think my biggest thing that I had to rethink since we last talked with Notion was, will people just not want to have all of that, and basically go with a model, with one of the frontier models, and it depends on the business. But there's a lot of businesses that are just very operational, like heavy,
Right.
They're marketing light or like sales light even. Those may just go with a frontier model, and they just like chat and talk to the thing all day, and then they're in group chats with some people. And it's a little chaotic, but it kind of doesn't matter, because you can just ask the model what happened, and it essentially like has enough context to reconstruct things that normally would have been documents, but it just reconstructs on the fly for you. I think that's the other possibility that would be a big thing.
I agree.
For Notion.
And what's interesting for Notion, We are just armchair quarterbacking Notion's future so
Yeah,
hard.
they should probably have us to talk about their future.
But what's interesting is there is tension because Notion's MCP setup is outstanding. Like, it is really good. I wired it up to Claude Code to, as part of my
Did they take the limitations off of it? You can like write pages and stuff. It was like basically read only for a long time.
That's interesting. I don't know.
Which, I don't know. Anyways.
I'm pretty sure you can write, but I don't know.
Because there's a lot of walled garden MCP stuff happening.
There is a lot of walled garden MCP.
Where like, we have one and it's great. And then you
Right.
try to do something, you're like, oh, well, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You're like, well,
But Notion's APIs are good. But also,
Yeah.
I am speaking from
Yeah.
like, we're,
Right.
of Vercel, we're on the whatever probably the top like
true.
enterprise
Yeah.
tier is, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
But it works really well. And so increasingly, if I'm working on a project, a lot of times I will, have files locally in a folder and use Claude Code or Claude Cowork, and then just connect the MCPs that I need, including Notion, which is, a huge repository of information, at the company. And so that is a major way that I interface with Notion, right?
Question.
Is through an entirely different
Yeah.
tool, which is tension for them because,
Of course.
know.
But is the content that you want stuff that you previously produced and is in Notion, or is it team members' content that you want? Or both? Like, what's the mix?
What makes it really valuable is that I can ask it to search for content because there's so much in there.
Yeah.
And, it's just, it's teams try to keep stuff organized, but you're just a fast moving company. And
Yeah,
so,
right.
it's, just hunting and pecking and trying to find stuff is really hard. Notion's AI search is a starting point for a lot of things that I do.
Right.
Because it's just like, show me a list of all of the information related to this topic.
Right.
Which is really, really helpful. But then you can do the same thing, through the MCP, integration, which is awesome, right? So it's like, oh, this is interesting. Like, what information do we have? There's a bunch of, product information. There's a bunch of marketing information. There's, there's a wealth of knowledge, which is great.
Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
it is kind of interesting because that essentially turns Notion into a database.
Yes.
It is a database, but practically, right, the interface changes. And so, I don't know, it's interesting because that's much more of the Fortune Cloud 100 play, where someone like me who's working at Vercel interfaces with Notion in a bunch of different ways, but the API and MCP stuff is like really critical for this audience.
Right.
But I think, that world, even though probably like extremely lucrative for Notion, isn't most of the world. The wider opportunity is for people who don't know that Notion even has an API and don't care, right? But it's all connected.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting because, I do think, especially for marketing or content, any of those workflows, like, you have to have a place to author and to store and to build up like information. What I'd be curious, because I just haven't seen the use case as much, is like operational heavy companies. Like, what do they do now and what would they do? Where they just, for whatever reason, they just don't have, maybe they like use a marketing agency. So they don't really have much internal marketing.
Yep.
And like, are they going to, because this is what I would imagine, they're going to like have meetings, like keep the records in the meetings and like whatever frontier model they use, and then just like ask questions like, what do we talk about in that meeting? And then same, like, if they're going to have meetings, they're going to have email, and they're going to have some kind of messaging. And then they want the AI connected to all three, and they'll just like ask questions.
Yep.
And it'll be interesting, like, what are they okay with transient assets, or do they want a lot of like produced assets?
Yeah.
That are physically stored somewhere. And to start with, like, I think everybody's like, oh, I want to know where that PDF is.
Right.
But if it's good enough
It doesn't
to
matter.
produce it on demand, which it will be,
Yep.
it'll be interesting if they care.
Yeah.
Which I think
totally.
they won't.
Do you think Notion is threatened by Anthropic, or OpenAI or whoever?
For that use case, yeah. If you're actually producing content, like authoring content, and you're not just going to like throw AI, like, I mean, of course, some companies will be like, oh yeah, we just like have it published to the website and we don't even look, there'll be some version of that. But I don't think there's a long-term content play for anybody of fully generated like AI that no humans look at all. Except for like, I don't know, maybe like user's manual. Like there's certain kinds of content, sure, or technical writing maybe. But like thought leadership or like things like that, I don't know. I think you need a place to author and to revise and to like.
I agree,
interact.
but I mean, I think Claude's desktop app to me is increasingly feeling like a natural place for that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they could add collaboration features and make it
document
Notion-y.
editing.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
I mean, that starts to get really interesting, right?
Yeah,
because then, to your point, you open the path of least resistance for someone using these tools. Let's just say your average, knowledge worker or someone using some sort of business software. It's like, well, I mean, the thing that's attractive about the integrations that you can add to GPT or the integrations that you can add to Notion or Anthropic or whatever is that you just sort of have a single interface to access and work with this different information. And so it's like, okay, well, why wouldn't Anthropic just build a document editor like Notion and then just start storing your stuff?
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
they already have whatever it's called, the artifacts thing. It's just not like well built out.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it is kind of funny because the way that you would do an editor inside of Claude, and they have a template for this where they say, build an artifact that is like an AI-enabled markdown editor, and you build an app and run it locally.
Yeah, right.